is a Times Award winner for deploying result-oriented leadership development frameworks across organizations. She has led global roles across United States, UK, EMEA on leadership development and also organization development in banking, IT, and pharma domains. She's certified on 12 different psychometric and organization development tools from organizations like Yale University, Kenneth Blanchard University in the United States. She has led Great Place to Work GPTW certification efforts for her current organization, CDK Global, and they have been successfully certified 2 times in a row. So today, let's chat with Gauri Bhanjar in today's episode. This is the Guiding Voice podcast series, TGV for a Better Future. This is your host, Navin Samala, a fellow IT professional on a mission to impact millions of careers and lives across the globe. Folks, during every episode, we interact with industry experts or thought leaders or academicians or coaches across the globe to drive some insightful conversations that will help our audience learn amazing stuff. Also, we share an interesting trivia or a fun fact towards the end. And you'll acquire more knowledge by tuning into TGV per every minute than any other podcast in this space. Thank you so much for joining us. And folks, today we are going to discuss a topic, how effective L&D programs will help the organizations retain and grow talent. And we are pleased to have Gauri, part of TGV's journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Gauri, welcome to TGV.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. And so nice to be connecting with you after such a long time. Really, it's wonderful, and congratulations to the TGV network for all the success that you've been creating, not only for working professionals, but also students. So glad to be here.
Pleasure is mine. And yeah, it's been most awaited episode from my side because we tried to connect in the past, but somehow it did not happen. Anyways, I'm glad that we are having this conversation today. So super excited. All right, Gauri. All right. So I've briefly spoken about your achievements in the introduction. Can we talk about your career journey and most importantly, the top 3 things that have helped you so far?
I'm glad we are speaking about this, Naveen. Yes, so overall about 18 years of working with various roles across Pharma, IT, and banking industry. So in the last 18 years, I think we've seen a lot of changes in the roles. I started in the academic world with an assistant teacher at the start of my career, and then got into something very different, which was outbound sales. I saw a lot of growth happening in sales, and then the calling was always looking for something that I wanted to do, and that's where organization culture, talent development really happened for me. Right now, I find that this role is very uniquely placed because there's a combination of being business owned, whereas the accountability being with the human resources. So in a way, it's a mix of both. And to answer your question around top 3 things, I think those are very simple for me. The first one is stay curious. Apart from this being CDK's core value, Naveen, you would know this. Apart from being a core value, I think at CDK we definitely do justice to staying curious. There are so many opportunities that we create for our employees to constantly develop themselves. And this also happens to be my personal mantra. So there is always an opportunity to keep looking and keep learning. That's what I think it thrives me. It keeps me on. The second one is, always focus on the impact. So since there are so many things, all of us are multitasking, we are doing a lot of things on an ongoing basis. If we do keep that lens of, being able to focus on impact, it will create a distinct success for any individual. And the last one, which I'd like to share is take people along while you aspire for growth. And I'm sure this is the mantra for TGV as well, isn't it, Naveen? Would you want to share a little about your journey with TGV?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. So for us, again, staying curious is also our key or core value, I would say. And at the same time, creating that long-lasting impact on careers and lives of people. I think we are resonating very well with the 3 things that has helped your career as well. And talking about aspiring for growth, right? The platform itself is to enable growth of our audience. be it growing personally or professionally and all. So initially we started doing some episodes only related to technology aspects or entrepreneurship related. But over a period of time, as and when this HR fraternity and coaching community have started approaching us, we thought, yeah, it is important to focus on the personal transformation as well. Right? That's how, if we grow as a person, if we grow as a person, we will grow as a professional as well. Right? Yeah, I completely resonate with you. And thanks for that question.
Great. And I think the last one is something that I learned really, over the years is success cannot be really achieved single folded, right? You really need that community and the kind of impact that we are creating to be have that sustained impact.
Absolutely. So, taking a look at your career, you started as a assistant teacher, and now you are leading the entire L&D organization, right? At an MNC, it is not a small thing. So, you have had this 18 years of illustrious career journey. And what did you see as a evolution happening in this space, in the L&D space?
I think again that's a very pertinent question, especially for now, right? Since the time that COVID has kind of impacted all of us. I think all industries, to be honest, have really seen an innovation, a version 2.0, if I may. But really for learning as well, there has been a real change. The evolution has been multifolded and it's happened overnight, like the way they say. So I'd just like to share about some reasons why the learning industry has kind of evolved. One is obviously, to be able to stay in a highly competitive business environment. That's the first one. The second one is the rising complexity because all of us are connected virtually. That kind of poses a big complex problem at hand. The third one, which we are leveraging on heavily from a learning industry, is the digital revolution, right? And fourth one is, thankfully, we have a multi-generational workforce. So to be able to create learning opportunities which resonate with various generations at the workforce, that's really keeping us on our toes. The last one is, Naveen, you will agree with me. This is, a very short life, shelf life for knowledge. What was required yesterday is no longer applicable today. What is an absolute important skill today is no longer going to be relevant tomorrow. So I think overall, these are the 5 aspects which are keeping us on our toes and they are really evolving us on an ongoing basis.
Perfect. Very insightful. Now, if we talk about the sunrise sectors, right? EdTech is one among them. And there is at least one platform getting launched on daily basis, focusing on this community learning or through content creation. For example, TGV itself is one on its own,
Yes,
right? Though we are a podcast, indirectly we are providing some education, right? By talking to industry experts like you and seasoned coaches and everybody. So we are seeing this EdTech space, right, impacting the universities as well. Like if you and I belong to the same generation, like we graduated around 18 years ago and all, and we formally studied in the universities and all. But if we look at the millennials, as not millennials, but the centennials especially, they are learning this Java programming, not even Java programming. I think Java, they would probably kick me if they hear about Java. Let's talk about Node.js, Angular, and all other evolving contemporary technologies and all. They're learning at a very young age, and they're not undergoing through a formal industry program as such. Likewise, this is one scenario which I can talk about the impact of EdTech on the university side. So how do you see this EdTech industry impacting the corporate L&D programs?
Spot on. I mean, and it's amazing to see the evolution, especially in the tech ed space, right? So, I'd like to classify from a learning standpoint. If we are looking at an organizational setup like CDK, right, and that the kind of investment that the organization does to facilitate learning is very heavy, right? We would like to classify learning into 3 types. The first one is really the tool-based learning. The second one is skill-based learning. And the last one is leadership or organizational development learning. Now, tech ed programs, coming back to your point, right? It's really building future skills in a significant way so that the organization can really make this an integral part of learning, which we were talking about the skill-based learning, right? So when we're talking about developing skills for the future and new technologies like obviously RPA skill, where we are really looking at building an automation or for that matter, artificial intelligence or Amazon Web Services, bringing in VR into learning. So all of this is so much a reality today. And I think it's really making us, in a way, constantly innovate the space in which we are. And the good part is that, no longer is learning looked in an isolation. What that means is really we're looking at a holistic journey. We're looking at creating a platform where our employees get the learning, and then they also get an opportunity to implement that learning in an environment which they find to be very safe. And that's why all the project work comes in. While they're working on these projects, the good part is that they also have access to a mentor community. Now, this mentor community, Naveen, again, is created in house with a lot of people who are passionate about technology, just like you, right? So that's the ecosystem that we have created. And in a way, there are plethora of learning opportunities available, which are creating the right impact.
That's a great summary. So, Gauri, now let's talk about the L&D organizations in general. Like currently, I'm in my fifth organization. Okay. And I don't want to talk about companies in specific in terms of what kind of
Sure.
trends and patterns I have observed. In some organizations, there is a strong push from the company itself saying that, hey, you can upskill. And there are so many avenues that we are providing, be it from in the form of the virtual learning or instructor led or residential trainings, or you go for the probably a full-time, a part-time degree, and we are going to fund you. And
Right.
other organizations wherein employees are so curious, can you organize this? Can you organize that? Likewise, I've seen both modes. But when it comes to the employee himself or herself, right? How should they approach these L&D programs in general so that they can make the most out of it?
Yeah, and I think again, it's a very pertinent question, all the more today because there is so much access to information, right? We don't know what should I really look at, right? And I think again, going back not only to CDK but general mantra, right, that we follow is to be able to make learning to be relevant. While some of the answers that I'm going to share with you, Naveen, are very pertinent with CDK as an organization, and some of the practices that we really focus on because we know that we are in for a journey together. It's not a one time exercise, it's a continuous learning culture that we are creating, right? So I think one of the very very important points there is employees through their feedback and feed forward process, they're contributing significantly in this journey of making learning relevant to them. There are programs which are two-folded. One is reactive learning programs, which means a skill which was supposed to be delivered. We already have a business situation and now we are dealing with it. And the other one is a proactive, programs that we are scheduling. Since we know that from a business standpoint, these are skills which will help the business in the future, but we are investing in them today, right? The other piece that the employees are doing very actively is they own their learning. And this happens in the form of individual development plans. They really sit together today to be able to really look at their career. Where do they want to shape their career? Where do they want to go to? And then, craft that into a development plan. They have a discussion with their respective managers. And in a way, they are, accountable for their own development. IDPs is a great platform for employees to, create their career and then, reach out to the learning fraternity for that support that they require. The second piece there again, Naveen, is around the bite-sized learning solutions. And I'm sure this is not new. The entire industry is really focused on creating capsule-based learnings so that it's relevant and it's spot on. It's available at any time whenever the employee needs it. The last one is role-based learning paths. Again, these are in a way, great direction that we are offering to our employees so that they know if I am in a particular role, what are the kind of skills, capabilities, right from your technology to domain to some of the tool-based skills, leadership skills. It's a combination of all of them in a blended manner, and that's available to them. I think that's what employees are doing today to really, enhance the effectiveness of the learning that is being delivered.
Great. I think there are so many different options, and maybe one thing which is relevant or customized options, and probably depending on what is relevant to them, they can choose, right? Makes sense. And now let's talk about the creative part of engaging this L&D program so that we inject these learnings into the employees, right? And I know you guys are very creative at CDK. I have experienced it myself, right? So can we talk about creative ideas that your team has executed okay, to improve the enrollments and all. Because any organization you take, if they are proactive in terms of providing offerings, then we can't see much enrollments. But you guys have been successful, right? Whereas if there is a dearth of learning, then employees are so curious. I want to get enrolled and all, but there are no opportunities. So I think it might be a kind of oxymoron, or I don't know how do I explain this situation. But in your case, probably you guys are providing a lot of revenues. And at the same time, the success rate is also high, right? Without which you cannot achieve this GPTW and the kind of I have seen my own experience in terms of having attended this advanced leadership development program and support for my own BPI, initiatives and all, right? I think that is very much commendable. So now let's talk about your creative aspect, what you guys are doing differently.
Thank you, Naveen. It's very kind that, you're kind of, really giving the entire credit. But I think we really leveraged on your presence when you were there in CDK, right? There was this great partnership that we had when you remember you facilitated so many CI programs, and there was like a manager program that you facilitated. So I think in a nutshell, Naveen, all of these innovation or the creative part comes in only when there is collaboration, when there is partnership, right? And I think we are fortunate, to be honest, with having some of the real bright minded people who have helped us get to where we are. And now answering your the aspect around creativity, I think that's what thrives, right? That's what keeps us on our toes from a learning standpoint. So one is obviously creating very very relevant, agile and condensed solutions whereby our employees get the opportunity to select whatever that they want to learn at whatever time that they want to learn. The second one is, I'd like to talk about some fun, the entire element of learning. And we've created opportunities where every Friday we get together. We call it as Kolokoi. These are Friday learning hours. What we do at this point in time is we showcase a lot of programs that we have. We get to hear from our employees who have attended these programs. They are our testimonials, around what have they learned from the program and how have they implemented it. So it's nice because it's happening on a Friday. Two, people are a little relaxed. They want to listen to their peers talking about their learning journey. The third one is, each actually once in 6 months, we have a learning week, an entire week that is dedicated to really be able to look at all the opportunities that the learning space has to offer. This could be within the organization, it could be outside the organization. There are several meetups that we do. Basically, a lot of social learning happens around that. And the last one is really mentoring and coaching. Naveen, this is one thing which is really picked up in the pandemic space, because getting access to someone that you can speak with, someone who can coach you, has really seen a big improvement, and the uptake for coaching has really increased. So I think, a couple of things that we've put together so that the fabric of learning is stitched very appropriately and is created so that it impacts the learners.
Great. Fabric of learning stitched so appropriately. I love that statement.
Thank you.
So Gauri, let's talk about this centennial learners or the Gen Z learners, right? We have every platform that was created for some purpose ended up in terms of generating the content. And each one of us is using it in its own TikToks, be it the TikToks or the Instagrams, Facebooks, YouTube. They are not serving the purpose for which they originally started for, right? Which means everybody is trying to create the content, and somebody wants to use that content for education, somebody wants to do it for entertainment, so on and so forth. But over a period of time, I see that there is a tremendous shift in the trend, shift in the trend in terms of learning patterns and the way the content is getting absorbed, so on and so forth. So in this particular generation of content creation economy and all, right, and talking about Gen Z learning in general, how should the organization plan things to teach them?
Yes, so I think it's great perspective, Naveen. When we were discussing about the multi-generational workforce that we have, Gen Z is a generation which is really keeping us engaged and keeping us to really innovate at our best. Personally, I think I have a Gen Z right next to me. My niece is, in that category, in the adolescence and trying to understand. So In a way, there's a lot of learning that happens in the personal space as well. Coming back to what organizations can do, I'd like to share this a lot of research that's happened to be able to engage with the Gen Z learners. This research is, it's an extensive one, but I'll just talk about four specific points that the research really indicates. One is obviously the focus is on applied learning. They're very, very focused on being able to talk to or learn only those things which they know they can apply. If there is no application, there is no appetite for that learning. They are very clear with that, right? The second one is hybrid classroom. One methodology doesn't work with them because each one of them has, and that's applicable for all generations. But I think Gen Z is very open about their learning preferences and learning styles. So the hybrid classroom where, they get an opportunity to listen to a podcast or, go to YouTube, learn a lesson, listen to a coach, or for that matter, work on a project together. These are really, the various aspects which we, again, bake together to be able to create an appropriate learning intervention for them. The third one is the flipped classroom. Now, this is really taking over the education industry. And what happens in a flipped classroom is that the role of the facilitator is flipped. And the students really want to know what they will be learning in advance so that they can come more prepared for the classroom and in a way also take over some responsibility of the teacher or the facilitator, and they really, doing their presentations, they're really contributing and sharing their knowledge. So that's the entire thought process of the flip learning. The last one is really creating a learning environment. I mean, something that I shared with you on the Friday learning hour, the learning environments, right? So when we create a continuous learning culture, I think the Gen Z plays a very critical role. If they have found a learning resource which was very meaningful for them, they will have really be the voice of customer for the learning organization. They will stand up and they will talk about what they learned from the entire learning engagement, right? So in a way to create a continuous learning culture where the Gen Z plays a critical role. These were, overall the 4 points that I had on being able to engage with the Gen Z.
Lovely. I think you guys are constantly on your toes to innovate and create something, okay, and with a noble intent of making them better, right? I really love
Yes.
that particular attitude. In fact, it is good for organizations to thrive in this highly or fiercely competitive world. All right, so we've been talking a lot about learning and development, catering to multi-generations, so on and so forth. Now, I think it's time for us to add some spice to the episode. Okay.
Sure.
Let me ask you a few interesting rapid fire questions if you are ready, Gauri. All
Sure,
right.
absolutely.
Wonderful. That's the spirit. And all you have to do is you can briefly answer to the question that I'm going to ask you so that our audience will get to know the other side of Gauri Bhutti.
Sure.
Wonderful. So with that, let me fire the first bullet out of the rapid fire. Gauri, what is one thing that you would like to do differently from your past?
Well, that's a great question. And I think the one thing that I'd like to do is just be open, right? Have no resistance and just be open.
Awesome. I think that will open into a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
All right. Let me move to the next one. What would you do if you win a $1 million lottery?
Wow, I wish that happens. I think, Naveen, very closely to my heart, right? If I did have that kind of money, I will start a startup, and that will be no different from what I do today. Really have a learning and coaching startup, a combination of any form of learning available. And, the good part is that this business that I would have would be available for everyone across the globe, and they will have access to all forms of knowledge across the globe.
Wish you all the very best. And once you win that $1 million lottery, please call me. We are going to help you out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here
Look
comes
forward,
it. Wishes. Let us wish ourselves all the best.
Yes.
So Gauri, this is a question to a seasoned L&D leader. What is one random skill that you would like to learn?
Several of them actually, but if I were to just name one of them, it will be gardening and landscaping.
Awesome. In fact, I used to do gardening during my school, especially my 10th and 11th standard and all. Wherever I go, I used to find some plant, get it home, and I did it for 2 to 3 years. Like it became an addiction for me. But over a period of time, it faded off. But yeah, it released a lot of stress.
Amazing. Amazing, Naveen.
All right. So moving on to my next question, Gauri. Given a chance, which celebrity would you like to meet?
Given a chance, I would like to meet Shah Rukh Khan,
Wow.
my all-time favorite.
You know, somehow I was thinking you would answer this. I don't know the reason. Don't ask me. All right. Good luck on that.
Yeah, but I think that's like since childhood, the fantasy.
I get it.
Yes.
King Khan. Now let me move on to the last one for the rapid fire. Gauri, what is one electronic gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself?
Wow, again, there are several, but I'm late in the game. But I think if I had that opportunity, in childhood, Naveen, I would aspire to be an astronaut, right? So anything that would take me to the space, I'd love to be associated with that. Any gadget in that space.
Yeah. Awesome. So that was marvelous rapid fire. With that, let me flip back to the mainstream and ask you one final question for today's conversation. So, Gauri, what would be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
Yeah, I think it's very simple, Naveen. It's just stay hungry and stay curious. Because if this is there, that appetite to learn is there, I think, nature by itself will unfold so many opportunities, provided that space of, being curious exists. So let that hunger always exist. I know it's a cliche, but it's something that, out of my own experience, I would recommend that just keep that on and keep fueling, that spirit of being hungry and being curious.
Lovely and so profound. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And also, thank you so much for being part of TGV's journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. It was amazing to talk to you. And I think you need to continue the same energy levels or probably exceed them and build a better world.
Thank you, Naveen. And I really want to acknowledge all the impact that you're creating, Naveen, right? And this is from the bottom of my heart. It's tremendous what you're doing. Please do continue doing all this lovely work. And here's wishing TGV a continued success.
Thank you so much. And it wouldn't have been possible without support of people and friends like you, right?
Absolutely. Great.
All right.
Thank you, Naveen.
Thank you so much, Gauri. All right. So, folks, we have the nuances of L&D organizations and the effectiveness of L&D organizations, how they are going to help the organizations retain some best of the best talent from Gauri. And on that note, I would like to hear from you in terms of what kind of best practices that your organization have followed with regard to L&D practices and all, or in case if you are an L&D leader by yourself, please feel free to reach out to us and share your work in the form of email, or probably you can comment on the YouTube video in case if you're watching it on YouTube, or else feel free to reach out to us from any social media platforms, because we would like to see the trends that are happening in terms of the industry-wide best practices. And that way we'll stay on top of the game. All right. So audience, before we move into the trivia section, here is a small request to all of you. In case if you haven't subscribed to TGV, please subscribe from the app where you have tuned in from, so that you will be notified about all the future episodes. Also, if you have found this episode useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from TGV, because your friends will learn some amazing stuff like you, and we will gain new subscribers. So thank you so much in advance. All right. So now let's cruise into the trivia section of today's episode. And today we have spoken about learning and development, right? Let me talk something about learning itself. And how this learning is going to make our brain differently. It all depends on the type of the learn we learn. And depending on that, our brain will grow differently. So, as per several years of research, scientists have figured out that the taxi drivers have a bigger hippocampus than the bus drivers, because taxi drivers go on a different route every day than bus drivers. So they need better spatial awareness. Sounds interesting, right? Likewise, you can compare with people from different professions and how they are different in terms of thinking. And probably this could be the reason. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning. This is your host, Naveen Samala, a fellow IT professional, just on a mission to make the difference in the lives of millions across the world. Until next time, bye-bye.